Celebrations to mark Queen Elizabeth's Platinum Jubilee end with an appearance by Her Majesty here at Buckingham Palace. The Queen appeared at the end of a pageant alongside the Duke and Duchess of Cornwall and the Cambridges. Prince Louis lapped up the procession which celebrated each of the Queen's decades on the throne. Tens of thousands of street parties also took place across the UK, despite many having to wrap up against the weather.
I'm glad I'm here. God bless you. God bless the Queen. God bless this nation.
And also coming up on the programme, Russian missiles strike the Ukrainian capital for the first time in more than a month. In Bangladesh, an explosion and fire at a storage depot kill at least 49 people. More UK travel disruption as flight cancellations affect some of those returning from half-term breaks. And a century from Joe Root sees England win the first test against New Zealand at Lord's.
Good evening from Buckingham Palace, where a huge pageant along the Mall has ended with an appearance by the Queen. The event concludes 4 days of celebrations to mark Her Majesty's Platinum Jubilee. More than 10,000 people, including the military, performers and key workers, took part in the parade, which depicted key moments from each decade of her 70-year reign. Sir Cliff Richard, Ed Sheeran and Gary Lineker were among the celebrities taking part, and our royal correspondent Nicholas Witchell was watching.
The closing moments of a memorable Jubilee celebration. Back onto the palace balcony came the Queen, accompanied by Prince Charles and the Duchess of Cornwall and the Cambridges. 1 current and 3 future monarchs, Charles, William and George. It was the image which the crowds had been hoping to see, an image which emphasises the institution's continuity. A monarch who's reigned for 70 years, looking to the future and offering reassurance. The national anthem was sung with feeling. The balcony appearance was the climax to an afternoon of Jubilee pageantry. It had all been very British. The story of the 7 decades of the Queen's reign. The sights, the sounds, the dance moves, the faces and all those memories. The organisers had called this section the time of our lives. And this being the story of Britain, there was a good sprinkling of the mildly eccentric, on 2 wheels and on 3. All of which, it must be said, were doing rather better than this 4-wheeler. Leading the pageant was the gold coach, the coach that had taken the Queen to her coronation. Images of her on that journey were projected onto the windows. The coach was making its first public appearance since the Golden Jubilee in 2002. In the royal box, the Prince of Wales took the salute from military units representing Britain's armed forces and detachments from many of the 54 members of the Commonwealth. Making a return to public duty, Prince Louis in the royal box with his elder brother and sister, George and Charlotte. Things were livening up. The parade was on to the 2010s. There were break dancers. Princess Anne was clapping, and Grandpa was about to be put in charge of Louis. The parade showed the modern Britain, inclusive and with a focus on the environment. The theme of this float was the Queen's green canopy. At 4:30, the Royal Standard was broken out above Buckingham Palace, and half an hour later, the Platinum Jubilee had its perfect ending. Nicholas Witchell, BBC News, at Buckingham Palace.
Well, people across the UK have also been holding thousands of Jubilee big lunch events. One of them was at the Oval Cricket Ground in London, where Prince Charles and the Duchess of Cornwall were special guests. Our Midlands correspondent Navtej Johal reports now from one street party in Leicester.
Assessing the options for a very special lunch. The Oval Cricket Ground in London is more used to serving up sport than sponge cake, but the Prince of Wales and the Duchess of Cornwall joined hundreds of guests at the stadium to mark the final day of the Platinum Jubilee celebrations. Meanwhile, the Earl and Countess of Wessex were with the crowds having a long lunch along the Long Walk outside the gates of Windsor Castle.
Here in Leicester, this is one of tens of thousands of big Jubilee lunches taking place around the country. And come rain or shine, and it's been mainly rain, people have been determined to celebrate Queen and community.
I'm glad I'm here. God bless you. God bless the Queen. God bless this nation.
So despite the rain, everyone's got a smile on their face and everyone's just happy, full of energy as well. It's brilliant.
She's a good queen and she takes care of all of us and the whole entire world.
The annual Big Lunch project is usually a Thanksgiving event for neighbours and communities to come together. This year it's become part of the Jubilee celebrations. And it may not have been as lavish a spread here as the Oval, but it was still appreciated by everyone after a difficult couple of years.
Leicester in particular has had a bit difficult time. We were locked down longer than most other areas, and a lot of the houses around here are social housing stock and maisonettes, and it's just nice for people to get out and actually reacquaint with each other and make new friends.
This was very much a national celebration. In Morecambe, there was an attempt to break the record for the largest Jubilee street party. It wasn't just lunches in the streets. This crowd celebrated with a sing-along in Aberfan in Wales. Gibraltar! A carnival parade and picnic brought the weekend's festivities to a close in Edinburgh. And in Killyleagh in Northern Ireland, the dancers entertained those attending a summer barbecue. Celebrations as diverse as the country the Queen represents. Navtej Johal, BBC News.
That's it from me for now, but I'll be back with more from the celebrations here at Buckingham Palace a little later in the programme. Mishal.
Reeta, thank you very much. We will see you then. In other news today, Russia's President Putin has said new targets in Ukraine will be hit if Western countries supply the country with longer-range missiles. He was speaking as the Ukrainian capital, Kyiv, came under Russian missile attack for the first time since the end of April, with several locations in the city struck. Our Ukraine correspondent Joe Inwood sent this report.
Multiple blasts shattering the peace of Sunday morning in Kyiv. For the first time in more than a month, Ukraine's capital came under fire. Now, this is one of two sites that was hit by Russian missiles in the early hours of this morning. The Russians say they were targeting T-72 tanks donated by Eastern European countries. But the Ukrainians say this was actually a railway repair facility, and they're quite keen to show the world's media that that's what the Russians were hitting. In his nightly address delivered before this morning's strikes, President Zelensky described the scale of the attacks from above.
As of this morning, the total number of various Russian missiles used against Ukraine is 2,503.
Much of the damage to Ukraine has happened in the east of the country, the area known as the Donbass. In the town of Soledar, not far from the front, people there were also dealing with the aftermath of a missile strike. One man blamed the proximity of Ukrainian soldiers to his house. They need to withdraw the troops away from the city, Vitaly said, because if they are standing here, the Russians will hit civilians. Those troops are nearby defending their territory. The city of Severodonetsk is the current focus of Russia's offensive. It had been thought the city was all but lost to the Ukrainians. But then, over the last 24 hours, they say they have launched a successful counterattack.
Our chances of retaking the city are high. Severodonetsk is of symbolic importance only, not militarily or strategic. Lysychansk is much more important because it is located on the hill. It is easier for the military to defend and strike.
All the while, the Donbass continues to empty. People in towns like Slovyansk know that as long as Russia is on their doorstep, they will not be safe if they stay. Joe Inwood, BBC News, Kyiv.
In Bangladesh, at least 49 people have been killed and hundreds injured after a huge explosion and fire at a storage depot near the port of Chittagong. The cause isn't yet clear, but it's thought chemicals, including hydrogen peroxide, were stored at the site. Akbar Husain reports from Chittagong.
The blast happened as many people were preparing to go to bed. The fire raged throughout the night, with firefighters thought to be among the dead and injured as they tried to tackle the enormous blaze. The large container depot is about 25 miles from the port city of Chittagong. It's a major port for exports to the west. Firefighters say it's likely chemicals, including hydrogen peroxide, are stored there, causing further explosion and sending toxic fumes into the air, further hampering rescue efforts. I can see a lot of ambulances are parked here to carry the dead bodies to the nearest hospital. More than 200 firefighters have been deployed to defuse fire. Army has been called in to assist them. Bangladesh's industrial areas have a poor safety record, with regulations ignored or not enforced. Hospitals have been quickly overrun with the injured, many of them badly burned and in a critical condition. It's likely the death toll here will rise in the coming hours and days. Akbar Hussain, BBC News, Chittagong.
There's been more disruption at UK airports today, with EasyJet cancelling 80 flights just as many passengers were trying to return after half-term breaks. The company said challenging operating conditions were to blame. Earlier, the Transport Secretary Grant Shapps said he'd work with airlines to make sure the disruption doesn't continue into the summer. Our business correspondent Ben King reports.
After enjoying the sun in southern Turkey, the Grangers were due to arrive back at Gatwick in the small hours of this morning. But after 3 hours waiting at the airport in the middle of the night, their flight was cancelled and they were taken back to another hotel.
The only flight back out with EasyJet is next Thursday. So to the point where we've now just spent £3,000 on a flight home tomorrow night.
Are you going to try and reclaim that money back from EasyJet?
I hope so, Ben, and hopefully, that might be another story, yeah.
Theirs is one of 80 flights EasyJet has had to cancel today. Passengers returning from Spain, France and Portugal are among those affected. Gatwick has seen cancellations of BA and Wizz Air flights too, and some other UK airports have also seen disruption. Bad weather and air traffic control problems have contributed, but EasyJet blames a challenging operating environment.
Got too many flights and not enough staff to actually get those flights off the ground. And this is going to be something we see perhaps continuing into the summer unless we can get real recruitment issues resolved and people allowed to actually get on board with these airlines. Security vetting seems to be the big thing that's stopping airlines getting people up into the air at the moment.
The Transport Secretary said this morning he would do absolutely everything possible to prevent problems this summer, but that hiring workers from abroad wasn't the answer.
Let's have lots of different measures to help alleviate the situation with the industry, working closely with the industry to do that as well. The answer can't always be to reach for the lever marked more immigration. In fact, as I said, in Europe they've got exactly the same problems.
Holiday makers looking forward to a getaway this summer will be hoping those measures work. Ben King, BBC News.
In the last few minutes, Wales have taken the lead against Ukraine in the World Cup qualifier playoff final in Cardiff. Wales are aiming to secure a place in the tournament for the first time since 1958. The winners will be in the same group as England for the finals in Qatar. Now, it was quite a morning at Lord's, with Joe Root completing a masterful century and delivering England their first Test cricket victory in 17 attempts. They chased down a target of 277 runs to beat New Zealand by 5 wickets, as Joe Wilson reports.
Sunday morning and all things possible. A Test match at its best. Super intense. Captain Ben Stokes knew all he could do was watch. Every run mattered. 4 from Ben Folkes, a leap forward. Just 42 more to win now. Everyone in the ground was counting the score and counting on the batters who remained. But who else would you want out there for England but Joe Root, the calmest man at Lord's? New Zealand needed 5 wickets. Time was slipping by. Time for Root to reach 100 in this innings, to reach 10,000 runs in his outstanding Test career. But right here, the partnership with Folkes was worth even more because it kept the door closed on New Zealand. The very hardest thing to do is to make it look easy. The most demanding of situations became a masterclass from one of the all-time greats, winning the Test like that.
I think it's just a really important thing for the team to remember what winning's like again. It's felt like a very long time. It's always been talked about a huge amount, and just can breed so much confidence, and it can run through the rest of the group.
Well, remember, this was more than just the first test of the new summer. For England, they hoped this was the start of a new test match era. Some called it a reset. The captain preferred the term blank canvas.
Well, thanks to the former skipper, Joe Root, here's an image to inspire England onwards. Joe Wilson, BBC News.
And now let's go back to Reeta at the Palace.
Mishal, thank you. I'm joined by Nicholas Witchell. Nick, the Queen's appearance, the perfect ending.
Yes, she will have known how important it was for her to make this final balcony appearance. This, after all, was the finale to the whole Jubilee celebrations. It really wouldn't have been complete without her. I'm sure she was determined to be here, if at all possible, despite the discomfort that she felt on Thursday. And the message, I think, was very clear. This was the Queen saying, "These are my heirs. These are 3 future kings." I think she's very much at ease with the future. I think she has confidence in the future of the institution, confidence in the future of Crown and country. And I think we've seen over these past 4 days that, by and large, the bonds between Crown and country remain strong. I think also that the intensity of the feelings that we've seen over these past four days have been magnified by the knowledge that, yes, this will be the last Jubilee of this reign.
Nick, thank you very much. Nicholas Witchell there. We are back with the late news at 10, but that is it from us now on BBC One. It's time for the news where you are. Bye-bye.